Hey, it is Yas, and I'm going to be sharing something with you that I'm feeling a little bit anxious to share because I've never done anything like this before. And if you know me, if you know the things that I talk about, you know that I speak from the heart. But would you believe that I have actually been holding back? And it seems like now is the time to set it all free. It is quite a vulnerable thing to be sharing. So it's something that I had written when I was very much in the middle of the most difficult experience of my life. And what makes it vulnerable to share is that, well, one, it is very personal. I'm spilling the story of my life here, but also I'm still going through it. I haven't come out on the other end of it. And because of what it is, complete uncertainty, I don't know if I do get to come to a place of complete clarity and certainty and knowing because I have no clue. I'm in a space of not knowing. But I've reached a stage of it, if I can call it that, of greater acceptance and appreciating what it's actually done for me. So, what I'm going to be sharing, what I wrote, was when I was very stuck and resistant. And I was just like angry that nothing was going according to plan. And where I am now, I'm quite at peace with it, even though I still don't know where I'm being led to. I do feel very much at ease and I can talk about it openly. And why I'm sharing this is because I have been guided to share it. I have been seeing signs like crazy. I do oracle readings for myself. My own cards have been telling me that it is time. And the oracle reading that I did for the month of October, I speak about being in a place of not knowing, being in a place of uncertainty. And this tied in so perfectly with that that it just felt like, okay, it's time. It's time to share. And my hope is that if you're listening to this and you are perhaps going through something that is making you feel uncertain, uncomfortable, afraid of not knowing what is going on, know that it is okay. And that while it is equally okay to be sad, like that is not something to be dismissed, experience the difficult, sad moments of not knowing, but also know that there is another side to it, that you can still thrive, you can flourish in a place of not knowing. That's what I feel for myself. I am evidence that you can go through complete chaos and you can turn out not just okay, you can turn out better than okay. And you can learn things about yourself, you can discover things about yourself that will blow your mind. And that brings you so much joy and excitement and peace, all in that space of not knowing. So if that this is something that you need, I hope that this gives you the confirmation that you need and it resonates. Okay, so I'm going to be reading off the screen. It's quite a bit that I wrote. And I need a whole screen for it, so I'm going to be looking in this direction as I read it. And just to mention this practice of me writing, this is something that I started about a year ago. It started off very small, where I would just post like short pieces on social media and quotes. And it ended up evolving over the last year, where I would write about like general things that could be shared with the public, but that writing ended up evolving into becoming quite personal. And it's almost like the writing took on a life of its own because I don't even feel like it's me writing anymore. It's just like I'm I'm the thing that is needed to physically do the writing, but the story is coming from someplace else. And that's why I feel comfortable sharing it because although it is very much about me, I know that this story does not define me. I am not tied to a story, and neither are you. Okay, so let me get started. I mentioned that I wrote this when I was in the middle of this time of uncertainty. And oh, I keep digressing, but I think it will be helpful to share a little bit of a backstory before I get started. So at the beginning of 2024, actually it started before 2024. I was in my very corporate career path, and it started probably like 2 years ago, where I was beginning to experience signs of burnout. And I honestly don't know if it was burnout because medically nothing could be found that was wrong with me. I almost feel like it was an energetic purging. I don't know how else to describe it, but I was drained no matter what I did, no matter how much I exercised, meditated, ate healthy, it wasn't enough. My body was giving up. And it was reaching its peak at the beginning of 2024. And what happened at the same time was a huge, a huge shift in my life where I was faced with a decision to stay in my career, my very comfortable career, the only one that I've known, or to walk away and to open myself up to something that, although I didn't know what it was, I still don't know what it is. But to know that it is going to bring me something so much better. Okay. And I took that leap. I'm in the leap. I am in the air right now. That is the backstory, which will make sense when I read to you this piece, which I titled Living in the Void. Sounds a bit spooky. Okay, but let's start. Living in the void. What is it exactly? It's being in a place of not knowing why life is unfolding in a certain way, not knowing what you're supposed to be doing, not knowing what is going to come next, not knowing if you're on the right path, so much not knowing. It can follow a disruptive event in your life, like losing your job, a partner, or a friend. Maybe even moving to a brand new town and feeling completely clueless. I don't believe that there has to be a huge upset in your life for this to happen, but it does appear to be common from stories I've heard from authors and other people in my life. And it's definitely the experience I've had recently. At the beginning of 2024, my world was turned upside down when I was forced to make a decision about my career. Keep my familiar job and secure salary, or leave it behind and create space to attract what I was truly meant to be doing, not knowing what it would be and how it would arrive. This truly was the greatest turning point for me. My job and my career were everything to me. I poured all my energy into doing my best in my work and helping others do their best. At the time, I was invested in a long-term career path, and I made so many choices to solidify that that would be my future. And it all changed in what felt like an instant. I do feel fortunate that the choice was mine to walk away. I absolutely could have stayed and continued doing what I did, which I think I did pretty well. And it wasn't a bad environment, it was comfortable. But there would be this constant yearning for something more that I could not understand or describe. And I was extremely drained. A normal workday with no problems took too much from me. I existed just to work and to sleep. It was not a fulfilling life or a sustainable one. And that's why I decided to take the leap. I figured, surely there must be something more fulfilling out there. I see other people absolutely crushing it in their careers, following their passions. They look so happy. At least that's how it looks like from the outside. But surely that's possible for me too. I do believe that anything is possible. So if I was currently living in a very low, drained, unfulfilled state, then that also meant that there was a potential for me to live in a completely thriving and fulfilling state. I just needed to respect myself enough to move in that direction. I had to leave behind what was weighing me down and to allow myself to draw in the experience that my soul was calling for. And so I left my job, and it was devastating. My going away party felt like I was attending my own funeral. Nobody knew what was going on with me. From the outside, it looked like I was just leaving to move on to something better. But really, all that I knew about myself and my life was crumbling. My ego endured multiple deaths. I didn't know who I was anymore. And it was a very scary place to be in. And the only thing that comforted me through it was knowing that the experience I was walking into was absolutely necessary in order for me to start my new life. I don't know how I knew this. It was just a feeling that was very strong. I thought that the time at home was going to be wildly productive. I thought that, hey, since I left my job and I have all this time, I can now start building something for myself, get more creative than ever, and go, go, go. Just go for it all. While I did spend the first month and a half going full speed ahead, reading, learning, and planning what I thought my new career needed to look like, what was actually happening was that I was just draining myself even more. I kept pushing myself and I tried to force what my future would look like because deep down, I didn't know how to face the very uncomfortable truth. I did not know how to accept myself as not having a job and being financially independent. I did not know how to face the opinions of people in my life who did not agree with the choices I had made. I did not know how to not be busy. I had groomed myself to be this crazy busy machine from the time I was little. And this was now the first time that I had all the time in the world to do whatever I wanted. And I chose to fill it up with too many things just so that I couldn't have the time to face how uncomfortable I was. And this was when I had my official introduction to the void, where I needed to acknowledge that I had no clue what I was doing. I was terrified of not knowing where I was going and when my next job would arrive. I was so scared of not knowing anything. I finally slowed down and paused what I was working on. I was busy. I was building a website and planning what sort of work I would be doing online. I just paused all of it and allowed myself to sit in grief. And for a few weeks, I was a little bit of a mess, a lot of a mess. Memories from years ago started coming up for me from times that I had been really hurt. And I started to understand why it had to happen. It's so that I would eventually be able to learn how to heal myself from it. I began to realize that the void was not actually a place to be feared. It was a time to embrace. I was gifted the time to slow down and reflect on how much I have grown and overcome, and what I am no longer willing to tolerate as I move into the next stage of my life. So it sounds a lot nicer when I say it in this way, but I will not say that it was easy to go through. At least it wasn't for me. It's not easy waking up for days on end, not knowing where your life is going, allowing old traumas to flood in at any given time, and being willing to keep on going and not even know if what you're doing is the right thing or not. It's hard work, but it is necessary. It's necessary because if I did not take that time to understand what I needed to heal from, I would have just launched myself into my new chapter, still carrying all the beliefs and fears that absolutely did not serve me. And here's just a few of them. I needed to have a practical job and earn an income in order to be considered worthy and successful. People will not love or accept me if I make choices that they do not understand or agree with. I need to work really hard and make sacrifices in order to build a thriving career. These are the top three that summarize what I had groomed myself to believe all my life and what I had to peacefully part ways with. And I don't know if they will ever fully disappear, but I am at least aware of them, and I can remind myself that this is no longer what I choose to believe. As I allowed myself to slow down and appreciate the lessons that were arising during this time, inspiration started to come forward. I felt called to do oracle readings and share personal reflections online. I saw multiple signs nudging me to do it, and a few people who knew of my burning desires encouraged me to do it as well. And of course, the limiting thoughts of the older self came up to say, "Are you crazy? You can't do that. What will people think? It's way too hard. It's way too much work. You cannot do it." That is how my old self thought at a time when my life was way too tough to bear. And I understand why such thoughts were present back then. It had only the best intentions to keep me safe from burning myself out when I was already so drained. But that's not who I am anymore. And if I am a different person today, it means I take different actions, actions that my old self would have considered impossible for me to do. So I'm doing it, and it feels incredibly empowering. But the truth is, I still don't have that much clarity on what's next. I don't know where I'm headed. But here's what I do know: I will be taken care of no matter what I go through. When I need help or support of any kind, it arrives in unexpected and even miraculous ways. I have a comfortable home, and I have incredible people in my life that allow me to live and be exactly who I want to be. I have everything that I need and so much more. And I know that there will be so many more miracles to follow as I go deeper into this experience of living in the void. If this is where you may be finding yourself, lost or confused about where you are or where you're headed, I hope that this takes some of the pressure off to know that it is not necessary to know right now. There is something far more beautiful and incredible that is here for you now, that you will come to appreciate more than having that certainty about where you're headed. Something that you can ask yourself whenever it feels like it's getting too much is, what do I need to know right now that is for my highest good? And you don't need to force anything. Don't expect the answer to arrive immediately or to paint the clearest picture. It may show up instantly as a thought or a vision, or it may take days or weeks to show up in a dream, in a book, in a movie, or a complete stranger that you meet on the street. The signs come to us in ways that we can least expect. But when you open yourself up to miracles, I promise you, they will find you. Thank you for listening. And that is it. I had rehearsed reading this yesterday and I was totally fine. I did not expect for me to feel it so strongly reading it now, but there were a lot of emotions that were present when I had written this. It was 2 months ago, 2 months ago to the date of sharing this. And it was also 2 months after that I had taken that leap, leaving my career. I was in a very, very difficult space. But looking at it now, it feels like I am quite far from it. Even though I'm still in it, it feels like I'm far from it. I can see how important it was for me to slow down, to take that time to see what I actually needed to be paying attention to. There's so much more to us that matters than we think. The little things in our life that we worry about, that we stress about, they're not that big. There's so much more for us that can transform us and transform our lives. And I hope that me sharing this with you gave you comfort that you needed, for whatever it is that you may be going through that is bringing you discomfort, fear, uncertainty. I'm realizing now, when I titled this piece Living in the Void, the word living has so much significance. You can be growing even during times of difficulty, even when it feels like life is going against you, that you're stuck, that nothing is going to work out. You can still live. You can grow. You can thrive. It is possible. I'm doing it. And that means that you can do it too. Ooh, thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and I will see you again soon.